welcome to Bottom Line Results. My name is Lenny Nuccio, and I'm here today with Lynn Golding. And Lynn, you've been working with business marketing and strategy for a number of years.
That's
How
correct.
long have you been in that field?
Since 2001. In one way, I would identify it, but really my entire career, I always think everyone's in sales. So.
That's true. And what would you say, you also help businesses capture more customers too, don't you?
That's correct. That's correct. And we do that primarily by helping them look at their target markets, their marketing strategies, make sure that they have a compelling value proposition to compel that market space to buy, and then really that they're able to deliver on the brand promise that they make with the marketplace.
Okay, and Lynn, you've also helped companies with product placement.
Mm-hmm.
Why would someone want to take someone or bring someone in from the outside to perhaps to help them with their product placement?
Well, you know what, Lenny, I always believe that that an outside perspective is valuable for a lot of different functions. You know, you can bring best practices, outside people can bring the knowledge of a variety of companies across a variety of industries. And so when it comes to analyzing the best channels for product placement, again, that kind of background and expertise can be particularly valuable to the individual who's responsible for that area within the company.
Sure.
So we've seen that be very valuable to help them think about issues they might not otherwise contemplate. A couple of examples I would give you would be where does the product or service that you're trying to place within their organization, where does it fit in their product portfolio? What percentage would it represent of their overall sales? Have they made the right level of commitment to making sure that your product is actually going to get pushed out effectively? Have they aligned all the way up the channel in their organization, giving incentives and making it beneficial for people all the way up the line to push your product? So a lot of times we'll help companies look at those kinds of issues to make sure that they have a good alignment with a channel that will actually push their product or service.
Great, and we may all know, most people do, that sometimes a company will bring in a new product or try to target a new market. Why would you recommend, and many of them will just say, hey, let's just do it, it's just like everything else. You are very big on market research, and
Yes.
Why do you feel that way, that that's so important?
Well, I think research can bring a lot of benefits. Research done right can bring a lot of benefits. One of them is that we often see that companies, they're very busy doing the business, the everyday business of running the company. And sometimes it's challenging for them to separate themselves from some preconceived ideas about the marketplace, to separate themselves enough from the development of their own product. You know, when we develop something ourselves, it's our baby, and we love it, and we want it to be very effective and very successful. And it can be challenging to look at the risks associated with that and what are some of the kinds of things that might hold that product or service back. Market research is a really important component. What we see happen a lot of times is that companies don't necessarily do the kind of focused, intentional job of analyzing the market,
Sure.
making sure they understand, like they have a clear definition of who exactly their target buyer is,
Sure.
where to find them, how many of them are there out there, what's the value proposition that would compel that target buyer, and how do you articulate that in a specific way. So we see market research as being very valuable, but not stopping there. We also believe it's very important to integrate that into the company's market strategy, as well as integrating it into their sales plan. So it's very important that everyone in the company then begins to articulate the same value proposition, that the salespeople know exactly who the target buyer is, that they know how to articulate that value. And so we really recommend starting with market research for those reasons, but making sure that it infiltrates the way that the company does business all the way down, rather than what happens sometimes, which is everyone kind of fumbling towards success, doing the best they can, but not necessarily having everyone pulling the same direction.
I think we've all seen that as consumers too, and buyers, where
Yes.
you're getting different answers from different people within the other company, and what a mess.
Right, exactly.
We all know that there's a lot of churning and uncertainty going on out in the market. What would you say to a company that wants to gain a competitive advantage, in this type of economic climate?
Well, I always think that's an interesting question. One of the things, and it might be a little surprising, but one of the things we highly recommend that many times remains untapped, and that's their own workforce. The employees of any given company typically have a great deal of knowledge about what's working and what's not, what's happening in the marketplace, what are the sentiments of the culture. Very often companies don't tap into that knowledge in a focused, intentional way. So we believe that one of the places to start that is right in front of them is to start with their workforce and make sure that they're gleaning all of the information that they can, and then analyzing that and help them make some determinations about how to move forward.
So the people on the front line would really be the ones that are touching the customers regularly. They really know what's going on.
Exactly, and there are other things we recommend doing, but that's one that very often companies forget to tap into, and we highly recommend that they do that.
Certainly too close to trust sometimes.
Exactly.
What, Lynn, would you say is the most important component for success right now as a company tries to maybe tweak their marketing plan or their business strategy? What are you finding that maybe they need to focus on to be successful with all that's going on?
Right. Well, Lenny, I believe that there's a lot of uncertainty in the market right now. And what happens sometimes is that people forget to go back to the basics. There's a lot of churn, as you mentioned before. And so everyone is working very hard and trying to do more with less. And we really recommend stepping back and making sure that they haven't drifted away from their purpose. So I would go back to the idea of ensuring that they have a crystal clear definition of their target market, that they have a very clear understanding of what the value proposition is that will compel that market to buy, that they make sure that they have a targeted approach to how they market their product or service. So if you have a specified, clear definition of who your target buyers or your target market is, how do you reach them?
Sure.
And that sounds serious, it sounds very basic, but we find that a lot of times the management of a company gets very busy running the company,
Sure.
and they can sometimes neglect to make sure they understand how their sales force or their marketing team is really going at the market.
Sure.
And making sure that there's alignment.
So the leaders may be thinking everything, they've communicated effectively and everyone is carrying out the plan, but that's not always the case.
Correct. In fact, we see that. Larry Bossidy, who is the former chairman and CEO of Honeywell, in his book Execution said that one of the hardest things he had to do every day was to come into the office and say the same thing over and over
Sure.
and over again, to the point that he felt like people are going to say, all right already, I've heard you. But the fact is that that's what's required of management, is to continuously state the purpose of the company and make sure that the strategy stays in front of them. He also talked about believing that one of the most important things that companies can do is to inspire and develop their people.
Certainly.
More important than strategies, in his opinion. So that's one of the things that we see, is the importance of staying crystal clear on message and making sure that they provide the leadership to their workforce.
Excellent. And we hear a lot about outsourcing and have for some time. Why would a company want to consider outsourcing, especially if they haven't done it before, or perhaps they don't think they need to?
Certainly. Well, there's always the practical benefit of not having to worry about employment issues.
Certainly.
You can bring people in for a specified period of time, get the expertise that you need, and then finalize or complete the contract. So that's one benefit that we see, without having to worry about benefits and unemployment issues and all the things that companies are struggling with. And particularly, I think, in these times of uncertainty, when companies are not entirely sure what the future holds, the uncertainty will sometimes hold them back from hiring, because they don't want to have people on the payroll and on the books in that way. And so outsourcing can be a good option during those times. Also, it brings you best practices from other companies and a different perspective from perhaps a wider variety of organizations and a wider variety of industries. I think those are some of the key reasons why people see a value in doing it.
So an organization that can not only save money through the process and control their cash flow, whatnot, a little better than bringing someone on, but also get a fresh perspective, perhaps from some other companies that have been successful in those areas.
We think so.
Excellent. Well, appreciate it, Lynn. Thank you very much. Okay, and if you have any more questions, please give us a call at 949-788-2998, or check out our website at www.bottomlineresultscorp.com.